Okay.
Hello, Music Multiverse listeners. Welcome to Beyond Your Radio. I'm your host, Mark Kuligowski. Welcome to another Panelist Favorite show. Tonight, it's our Panelist Favorites, and it's going to be albums from 1970. What a fabulous year. I won't go into detail about what else was going on in 1970. We'll just stick to the music. But before we get into the lists, if you're new to the channel and Beyond Your Radio, please hit subscribe. Because if you do, you won't miss any of these in our famous weekly shows. For those people that are watching out there, sometimes they do collide from other artists and bands that we mention. And of course, if you could like and comment, that always lets us know what you're listening to, what your list is. And sometimes when I see something on your list, I realize, wow, maybe that should have been on mine. Also of note, we do not play any of the tracks in order to obviously stave off the monetization from YouTube, but there might be a light at the end of that horizon, but we'll look into that and we'll report back on that later. Besides, if I played all the music, this show would be 2.5 hours long. The panelists tonight get to share 5 of their favorite albums from 1970, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, each of them giving one each at that time. So we're going to go in the order. Well, actually, the panelists tonight, first off, we have Jeff Young, who's going to go first, then Deb Armitage Maloney, and then Chef Jeff, who from now on will be called the Grateful Dude. That's right, folks, the Grateful Dude.
I love it.
Are we ready, panelists?
We are, sir.
Go ahead.
All right, let's start with Jeff Young. What is your your number 5 from 1970?
First, I just want to say I'm glad you got my memo, Deb, about wearing stripes tonight. You look good in that.
Thank you.
And 2 of us are actually born before 1970. I'll let you all decide who that is. But so I picked a kind of off the wall one for number 5, the Jackson 5 Christmas album, which is actually their 3rd album of the year in 1970.
Yes.
So it was released in October. So it's their 4th studio album. But you know, they play the classic Christmas songs, but you know, they have the hit version, which you hear every year in the grocery store on the like this is an album you'll never not hear the rest of your life every year. And they're all very good songs, you know, like Santa Claus is Coming to Town, I Saw Mom Kissing Santa are like the 2 biggest, really. They always are on even just regular radio, like terrestrial radio, if you still use the dial. You know, when it came out, I looked up, it said it was a #1 Billboard magazine's special Christmas album chart for 4 weeks. And it would have actually probably been on the regular music charts, but they didn't actually include Christmas albums at the time, but based on their sales, it probably would have been. But you know, what's funny is some of the critics I was looking at who had talked about it said, you know, like a lot of the Christmas albums, especially today, they're there just to add to the portfolio or just get a quick buck. But a lot of people, like one person to kind of describe, I like the way that this person described this album as joyful enough to make me feel like it's the most wonderful time of year, rather than merely telling me it's the most wonderful time of the year. And they are, I mean, they're good songs. You know, it's Rolling Stone thinks, you know, they have been quoted as saying it's a gem. And a lot of people will say it's one of the best Christmas albums. It's not, you know, it didn't sell nearly as well as like Elvis's Christmas album, which is the all-time best-selling Christmas album. But anyway, I picked it mostly because, you know, as far as 1970s go, I'm not picking the top 5. I think they're 5 best, but they're 5 favorites. And, you know, while I don't have any of the Jackson's albums to play, you know, I know I'm always going to hear these songs at Christmas. And if I don't hear them, I'll kind of miss them if I don't hear them.
At least I know what to send you for Christmas.
Well, they released that album, ABC, but I can't think of the name of the other one.
I think it's just called the 3rd album. I'm not sure, but
okay, yeah.
And for information, there's only one good Christmas album, and that's the Chipmunks album. That's it. All the other are with shame.
Wait a
Yeah,
minute,
Mike.
you almost had me review a Christmas album done by Hawaiian people.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, there's a lot
that
of
was the
Hawaiian
going to.
Christmas songs. You ate the Christmas.
Willie
I
K.
got him coming.
Yeah, I got this feeling that one of our panelists shows is going to be one of those, maybe. Although, bah humbug. I'll give this next up for Deb.
Okay, well, I don't have as much like knowledge and trivia that Jeff does about his first album. And I have to preface this album by the fact that out of my 5, this one I actually remember listening to in 1970. But that's because in my family, I had most of my cousins were either 4 years and older than me or 4 years younger than me and younger than that. So my older cousins had a lot of influence on my music. And this particular album is wacky and strange, and I loved it even more because my dad didn't approve of it. So it is Mother of Invention, Frank Zappa, Weasels Ripped by Flesh. Now, it also caught my attention and stayed with me because of the name of the album. I mean, obviously, no dad wants you listening to Weasels Ripped by Flesh. Just not a good look for your 8-year-old daughter. But after listening to that and knowing some of these songs and going, okay, this is like not like the Beatles at all that were big at the time. But then later in school, I was in band and I had a music teacher who wrote her own song with her husband that we had to learn and perform on stage. And it was called The Druids. And we got to just play all 64 of us or whatever was in the band, got to just make as much noise as we wanted. And you got to hear screeching. That's this album in probably half of the songs. But then they surprise you because there's a couple songs that are very bluesy. It's Get a Little is one of them, and the other one is Directly from My Heart to You. Very bluesy guitar, which is surprising because the first song is this screeching craziness that Frank Zappa likes to do. And then it leads into this Get a Little, and it's a sexual song, Get a Little, but it's captivating. There's some songs there where you hear a marimba, like who uses a marimba? That's just crazy in that era. And I don't know if it was an electric marimba, but it was a marimba. I
don't remember.
You don't remember marimba? But one of the other songs that I really liked, and only because of the name of the song, is My Guitar Wants to Kill You. And there's horns in it. So that's interesting too. So you're going, wait a minute, where's he going with this? So there's some live recordings on it. And to tell you the truth, I had not listened to this since I was very, very young, probably since the late 70s. And when I saw that this was the challenge today, I went, obviously, like we all did, and Google the albums that were released in 1970. And when I saw that, I went, oh my God, I actually know that. So that's why I chose it. So
Yeah. Good.
Hey, Deb,
That
Deb,
was an
I can't
acquired
believe
taste.
I can't believe you were even born in 1970.
see, I like you better than that other Jeff.
Used to that.
That
I'm
is the
keeping
Grateful Dude.
Yeah, that's a Grateful Dude. And I'll have another nickname for you later.
Oh,
Oh,
my
yeah,
God.
baby.
Speaking of the Grateful Dude, let's pass it on to you.
Okay. Let's see, where's my notes? I lost them as usual. Okay, Neil Young, 1970, After the Gold Rush. My second favorite album he's ever done with anybody. I just love this album.
It's a good album.
I'm sorry?
It's a good album.
I had a feeling, Jeff, that you would pick that.
Well,
I had him.
you know me well. After he labored for years with both Buffalo Springfield, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, his first two records I thought were a little flat. This one knocked it out of the park. This is such a great song. A couple reviewers I was reading called it perfect. It's Neil Young. I mean, it's pure Neil Young. He starts out with "Tell Me Why," "After the Gold Rush," "Only Love Can Break Your Heart," "Southern Man," "Till the Morning Comes," "Oh Lonesome Me," which is a really weird rendition of it, but it's just great. It's just great. I can't fault this album enough. I remember listening. Matter of fact, every album I'm going to talk about today, I've listened to in 1970. It's a great year for me, but I can't say much thing about this. He had a lot of the musicians that were in Crazy Horse backing him up on this one.
Mhm.
So it was a real good album. Mark.
Love it.
Yeah, I did some
Yeah.
Neil Young. Well, let me get into how I, come to this. So yes, I am one of the individuals not born in 1970. Obviously I did not hear these records when they first came out. And I wasn't even in the womb at that point. So there's no secret going on. So
I was.
okay, well,
Thanks for that.
yes, anyway.
I was graduating.
Times.
One of the reasons for this show and the things that I do has to do with this. If you don't go back, if you can't go back, or you don't think you need to go back, like Alex, you're wrong. You're so wrong. And when we talk
Really?
about, some of these people are dead. Some of them aren't. Some of them are still making music today and making great music. Some people will argue that from the 70s that were, around that Neil Young hasn't made a good record in a decade or more. I might argue otherwise, but they're still making music. They're still leaving an impression and people are going back. So when he talks about after the gold rush, I went back after hearing Freedom, and that was my first real enjoyment of Neil Young. So I go back and I have everything. There's an entire Neil Young corner, and there's candles burning and homage to him always. Anyway. So that being said, I went back and I looked at it. I said no live albums.
Yeah, me too.
And I wanted albums that I played or that shocked me or that I realized for that time could still hold up today. Now there's a lot of them. This is 1970. I don't know what was in the sauce that year, but there was a lot in the sauce. Lots of people are hitting on the same sauce. So I will start mine, and the ordering was hard. That was the problem I had.
I changed mine how many times?
Yes. So I'm going to start off with probably something that might stun. My number 5 is Mountain and their album Climbing. All right.
Yeah.
Now everybody knows Mississippi Queen.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Leslie West was recording a solo record. What was the name of that solo record in 1969? Oh, it was Mountain. Then he decided, oh, wait a second, I got all these other people playing together, and we all like to let's call the band Mountain. So he comes up, they put out this record, and Leslie West is a I don't know if he's an underrated guitar player. In my estimation of my generation, I don't think people know who the hell he is. But he was like the main guy who he made the Les Paul popular, from what I ascertained, from the things I read.
I almost picked that album too.
Yeah. So one of the things I love about this is it says on the album inside, I'll quote the great Leslie West. This record was made to be played loud.
That's perfect.
Right?
Yep.
So maybe this is just straight up rock with it. It's got Southern tints to it and stuff,
Mhm.
but you could say Black Sabbath kind of thing too in some instances,
Yeah.
but not maybe as much. But what this reminds me of is an album not too far from where we are in today. Is his guitar acoustic work went from rock to flamenco in acoustic without any warning. I don't know how he did it in his finger picking. It's batshit crazy to the point of Jeff Martin in the album Splendor Solace. So if you get what I'm saying, the name of the song is called To My Friend, and it leads right into the layered. But all aside, this album is absolutely meant to be played loud. And I didn't appreciate it at any point in time until not too many years ago, maybe about a year ago, when they were talked about as being one of the bands that they cannot understand why they weren't extremely successful.
Right.
And to this point, they're kind of still around today, basically. So they have more albums than just what happened in the 70s.
I mean,
Interesting.
people still use their music in like TV shows and movies, and there's
Mhm.
always a place for them.
Mhm.
Yeah. So back to Deborah,
No,
right?
Isn't it
No,
Jeff?
Jeff. God, sorry. Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
Somebody
I'll-
keep the order. I lose the order.
I do that. I'm an accountant, so I
Okay,
got
you
you.
keep it in check.
On my screen, it's counterclockwise. I don't know if it's the same on yours, but
Mine's
I
just
don't have
straight
much
up
to
and
say
down.
about this next one, but I picked Led Zeppelin 3
Oh.
from October 5th, 1970. It's certainly not their best album, but
No.
they, like every album they've had, they have memorable songs, like
Yeah.
especially the opening track, Immigrant Song, is
Oh,
legendary.
yeah. Oh,
Even used in Shrek too.
oh, I
So,
just sang a little bit of it. Do I'm
Oh
gonna
no!
get
Oh no!
monetized?
and then there's Gallows Bowl and Inside and Loving You. But for me with Led Zeppelin, like, I don't know, I think the first Zeppelin cassette I ever bought at the Lockport Mall at Cabbages was probably Led Zeppelin 4. And then, I decided, what, I'm going to buy every single one I can find. And so I bought imports, I bought all the albums. I had like, Lily, you remember you used to have those little cassette drawers. I had like a
Yes.
drawer and a half full of Led Zeppelin with all the imports and stuff, and
I love it.
just couldn't get enough Led Zeppelin for like a few years. And anyway, so again, some of those songs there's songs on every Led Zeppelin album you will just always hear. And so that's why I picked that, because it's more of a favorite than a ranking of the
Mhm.
70s. That's what I have.
I agree with you, but that's why I didn't choose it, because everybody assumes that I'm going to pick Led Zeppelin. So I left it to one of you guys. I knew it would come up in the
I got
conversation.
you back.
That's why I
Right.
didn't pick it.
Go Team Stripe.
To you.
Me? Okay. My fourth is Pink Floyd, Add a Mother Heart. It's not my favorite Pink Floyd album. However, I really got into Dark Side of the Moon and started to learn about Syd Barrett. And no, Syd Barrett was not on this album. However, it was within a couple years of his last Pink Floyd album. And so I was kind of intrigued, obviously, about his story. And so I started to go back and listen to older Pink Floyd albums after I was exposed to Dark Side. And since this fell into 1970, I picked it as one of my albums. Not that it really overly influenced me, but it did intrigued me to listen to Uma Guma and get more into appreciating Gilmore and Waters and their collaboration. And I mean, they're a great duo. And then, it was on the heels of Tommy, and, it was the start of like rock opera type stuff. It wasn't the same thing. It wasn't a story from start to finish, but there's one song on there that's 23 minutes long. And if you can sit through that,
The first song, isn't it?
yeah,
I think it is.
yeah, there's only
Yeah.
5 songs on the whole album. And
it's immersive. The first song is very that's
yes,
great.
yeah, it kind of hooks you. You go, oh my God, a 23-minute song. But then once you listen to it, you go, oh, that didn't really seem like 23 minutes. Like I said, it's not my favorite, but it's interesting. And when I had to pick 5 out of 1970, Floyd was a big influence on my musical taste. So that's why I chose that one.
Good.
23 minutes is just medium for the dead. So
That's like tuna.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, that's what I got. Because I don't think my attention span's any greater than that, Chef Jeff.
Well,
Grateful dude.
I'll send you a sleep record. So one song's an hour and 13 minutes.
Well, then I'll go to sleep and it might be
Yeah.
during the show, so.
Grateful dude, you're next.
Yes, dude. Okay, my next one is a personal favorite. I have a lot. This year, I'd say 70 and 71 is my golden year for all music. I love a lot of the stuff that came out of there. I mean, I was I 17? Yeah, I was 17 and 70. So, I was pretty wild child. But anyway, Key for the Tillerman by Cat Stevens.
Yeah.
Cat Stevens has always been a personal, I love you kind of thing. He is a fabulous writer when it comes to ballads. Father and Son, still brings tears to my eyes when I hear it. I love that. It was a phenomenal album at the time. It had so much airplay, it was ridiculous. Every station you turn on, Cat Stevens this or Cat Stevens that. It was very light as rock goes. At the time when the Zeppelins and the Sabbaths of the world were predominating, Cat Stevens comes there and just knocks this one out of the park. I can't say much about it because there's not much to say unless you are a fan of Cat Stevens. And there's a lot of people out there, a lot of friends, even guys in my age group who had never heard of him.
What?
But, yeah.
They need to listen to this show.
He was very
Doesn't surprise me. I think
he was
he's
very
kinda- he's genreless,
Yeah, like,
right?
I mean,
He
I
does
couldn't
he'll
even-
do folk rock. He'll do rock jazz.
yeah.
He's got, and his
The man's
latest
got-
record is religious.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but wasn't he like, didn't he want to be a Tibetan monk or wasn't he? or
Rock is my
something?
religion.
Yeah. Yep. So.
A great
Yeah,
record.
So,
Really
I
is.
like that.
Great record, a classic of all time. I listen to this record now and then. Every time when I need to have go through a sad mood, I love listening to
That album cover depicts exactly what the album sounds like.
right.
That's
Absolutely.
very odd considering it's a cartoon.
Yep. And I have that album right into my closet. So
Yeah.
it's a classic of all time.
Is there a hit on there that I would know? See, that's the problem. I know Cat Stevens
Yeah,
songs, but I never
when
put his
you're-
name with his song.
When you get off the air,
Mhm.
Google Father and Son,
Okay,
and I will
Okay, gotcha.
guarantee you've heard it.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
I will.
you're welcome. Marky,
So I am
3 years old.
Led Zeppelin 3, my number 4. For slightly different reasons, it still made the list. I enjoy the fact that the band said, let's roll acoustic. Let's folk it, let's, and this is the first record where Page lets go. He says, Robert, you want to write? Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Even Bonham is writing, right? More on that later. So Plant indulged that Celebration Day immigrant song, Friends, and Since I've Been Loving You.
Mhm.
Right up there with Stairway to Heaven vocally. Sorry,
Mhm.
just is, right?
It's a good one.
And the reworking of Gallows Pole is excellent. And that's kind of it fits the time too, even does and doesn't, they were still ahead of their time in a little bit. But yeah, it's still a record. I can put it on and there's only, I think there's a track there that maybe I'm thinking of skipping, but I always let it go. But yeah.
Didn't they put Gallows Pole on No Quarter when they reunited, Page and Plant. Thought that Gallows Pole was
Maybe.
on No Quarter. And it was more, I mean, when it was just the two of them, it was more, more guitar, and it was very hollow sounding. I loved No Quarter when they got together in the 90s to re-record.
Yeah, I saw Page and Plant, but I never saw
Yes.
Zeppelin.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
I think Zeppelin 3 is my favorite of all their albums.
Oh, mine-
love-
I love it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful album.
How many
Well,
times have you
wanted
seen
to
them, Jeff?
put- Huh?
I was asking Jeff how many times he's seen Zeppelin.
You know, I was debating that. It's either 12 or 13. I can't put it down.
Yeah, big jerk.
I had tickets to see them in Buffalo in 1981,
And what's
And-
fucking wrong?
and Bonham died like 3 months prior, so I don't have
Okay,
the ticket stub either.
No, I've seen them in a large venue, a very large venue, and a couple small venues. No, Led Zeppelin. That, as I said earlier, growing up in LA had its
Yeah, I
had
could say,
its
yeah.
perks. Yeah,
So growing
That's
up in
awesome.
East LA?
East LA, man. You only saw Cheech and Chong down there. That's the only one who played down there.
Yeah, well, you got to see him a lot, so.
Yeah, your low rider. That's a
Mr.
great pick.
Young, your third.
My third is from July of that year, Cosmos Factory by Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Wow.
That's a good one. CCR.
I mean, it's their fifth album, and I read it where it was at 9 consecutive weeks at #1 on the Billboard 200. But I mean, some really classic songs. Again, like Traveling Band, Running Through the Jungle, Up Around the Bend, Heard It Through the Grapevine. They did a remake of that. But I mean, just songs that are, again, classic songs that someone will always find a way to put it into their movie. You'll hear it in the grocery store. Heck, you might even find it in an elevator. I don't know. Like these are songs that'll never go away. You know,
Mhm.
they're just that
Mhm.
good.
I love that album.
Great
I
record.
have to say, I agree. It's a good one.
Excellent.
Mark?
You will move to you.
Me? Okay, my third is Bowie, the man who sold the world.
Hmm,
Um,
okay.
I basically chose this one again because I always have loved Bowie and he was on the list, but I knew the album because didn't Nirvana cover that song?
MTV's Unplugged.
Yes, they did. And it was so weird because so many years in between, right? And
Wow.
I never put it together, I guess, because I'm not you, Mark, but I knew that something sounded familiar with Nirvana's, and I go, wait a minute, this isn't their song, I don't think.
22, right? Something like that.
Yeah. But this album wasn't mainstream as far as what my parents were listening to on the car radio, right? I was so excited to be able to get a cassette of it at one point because my dad did not want me to have an album cover with a man with a long embroidered tunic on laying on a couch that like, you know, sort of like the Edgar Winter band, like didn't want to see any, or was it Johnny Winter? Whoever was
Quite
happening.
androgynous.
Yes, that was not allowed in my military home. So that was in a little bit more of a segue into being rebellious as much as I was rebellious. But there's a lot of like sweeping movement that then all of a sudden becomes really rapid and hyper, and it kind of gives you a feel for what's to come in David Bowie's music in the 70s and that. And you can hear little undertones of where he's going to move into like his space oddity or odyssey,
Space.
whatever it is, right? The one song that I always listen to, when I listen to it, I hope for a little bit more of what the song starts out to carry it through, but it doesn't. At the very beginning of She Shook Me, it sounds like Jimi Hendrix is playing on his album.
Mm.
And it's only about 3 measures long. And it keeps you waiting for more of it.
And
And
it doesn't come.
it doesn't come. But every time I hear it, I go, "Oh, that's it. That's why I like that song." So I chose that more for nostalgia as well. But the Nirvana thing, it kind of came all full circle when I was picking these songs, and I went, "Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
his song."
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
There's something about their cover that related to the music, maybe even better than Bowie
Yeah,
at that point, just the way
I
it was done.
agree. Yeah.
And they did somebody else's song on there too, the Meat Puppets, Lake of Fire. Lake of Fire?
Nirvana did in the Unplugged.
Yeah, Lake of Fire. Go to a lake of fire and
Oh, yeah.
fry. See him
Mhm.
again. That's a Meat Puppet song.
Yes. Oh,
Much
very
better than the
good.
Meat Puppets. So when you cover people, my suggestion out there in music
Is to be better.
is to pick someone who's not fantastic. Because I'm going to cover Adele. I don't think you should. Okay. All right, so
True.
let's get back to the Grateful Dude.
Okay, my next one is a personal favorite. I saw these guys in 1970, and I remember the concert like it was yesterday because I was sober for some reason. So don't go there. But this
Sober,
is
but he was high as a kite. What?
this is the Guess Who, American Woman.
Yeah.
Fabulous, fabulous. This is the 6th studio album by the Canadian band, the Guess Who. It was released in January, but it was pulled off the market almost immediately, and then released as a single. And then 6 months later, they released the album again. Randy Bachman was tried to revive him in '83, so and did a fairly good job of it. But I think that after the '80s, the band kind of fizzled. But I love this album, American Woman. The song was, once this thing hit #1, it just didn't want to leave. This thing was so, you listen to it, they played it at the drive-in, they played it everywhere. You heard this. You know, American Woman was a very, very hot album, especially for those who lived through it. It was great. Besides American Woman, No Sugar Tonight was on there. Very
Oh, really?
popular.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No Time, which is another very famous song.
Yeah, it's in the same vein as CCR. Just you're gonna never not hear
Yeah.
those
Yeah,
songs.
yeah. You know,
Exactly,
yes
yeah.
and no. Yes and no. There are similarities to the band, but CCR was a lot more raw, and they had a lot more singing talent than American Woman. Guess Who was more one note in the singing department, where CCR had many notes firing, or many cylinders firing.
Yeah, better band. Creedence, way better.
Well, yeah, Creedence was fabric, but don't take anything away from American Woman.
No,
you know?
the Guess Who are right in their wheelhouse. Listen, they were still selling tickets to shows 2 years ago or before the pandemic. So yeah, the people come from miles around. It's the top 10 bands in Canadian history.
Really?
Oh yeah. They're really, really good. I've seen them 4 times. Yeah, 4 times. And last time was in Vegas in the mid '80s. But they were good.
Yeah.
So, Mark, back to you.
All right. So this is where I step off the standard path
Cliff.
Ah.
of rock. I'm going to move into the unbelievable jazz record and the extraordinary people that played on this record with this individual: John McLaughlin, Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, Chick Corea, Billy Cobham, who I've talked about on this channel, Billy Cobham drummer, and Dave Holland. And they all got on with Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. Bitches Brew is probably in the top 5 jazz records ever made. When
I
I
almost
talk
thought of
about
picking that, but I don't know it well enough.
it is,
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know what to
Essential
say, except
craze.
I like that song, you know.
yeah, Miles Davis is taking it to an entirely different level, and everybody around him is on the ride. And it's an amazing piece of jazz. It's basically progressive jazz fusion, no question. But it is the most impressionable thing I've ever listened to in my life. And to realize that it was done in 1970 is crazy. Absolute craziness. He's one of my favorites of all time, obviously. But that it is not an easy record to listen to. You will not jump in if you're not already there. It takes time. This album has to be digested. And now with earbuds, it's even
Too much.
Yeah, maybe too much, maybe.
Yeah, but Herbie Hancock, like, I only know him from what was that like? Wasn't that like
Rocket. It was called Rocket.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't ask me how I know that.
Herbie Hancock,
story.
don't get me wrong, he stepped off several times into stuff that, like, I forget what the one's called, Sextet or Sex something.
I don't
And
know, but
that's he loved his
didn't he-
Moog. He loved to
didn't
turn
he
it
do
around.
a song that was like in a movie with
Well, he
Eddie
did
Murphy?
Ghostbusters. He did the Ghostbusters song.
He did Ghostbusters. Yeah, he did Ghostbusters. Yeah, interesting.
I've seen him 5 times.
Oh my
Always
gosh.
said, oh, hey, you don't have, I understand how many concerts I've seen, but no, he used to, I've had a love for jazz because my mom did. And
Okay.
me and my mom went to at the Greek Theater in LA. Every year they had a jazz festival, and we always
Awesome.
went. And Miles Davis was there
Yeah.
at least 3/4 of the time. He was always-
Wow. That's awesome.
and he can blow. He really can.
Oh yeah, just crazy, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Jazz is not an easy genre to play either.
well, it's
Jazz is
also
not easy.
unfortunate. I've said this probably on this channel before, but somebody who has a perfect ear, they can't listen to it. They won't.
Exactly.
They can't.
Mhm.
So
That's
that
true.
automatically, can you imagine starting a thing that you know that some people cannot listen to, even though they want to? They can't. They just can't.
Yeah. There's a lot of
that's why I like
syncopation.
it so
Yeah.
much. I have an imperfect ear. So
Yes. yes.
Must be because you're
I have something in my rear. What? I don't,
yeah. Hey, let's not talk about your personal problems again.
Okay, move along, everyone.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Moving along.
Jeff
Moving
Young,
along.
number 2.
Alrighty then. So
Oh,
for my next one, I picked the second studio album from Black Sabbath, Paranoid. And it was originally, they were going to originally call it War Pigs, like the song, but the record company said, we don't think we want to do that because of the ongoing war in Vietnam. We might get some backlash. So they changed the name.
also, there was an album by a band, War Pigs, that year.
And also, wasn't it the year before that Manson his people wrote pigs all over walls in blood? Yeah, it wasn't a good word to use in that era.
But also Iron Man is a signature song, and the title track, Paranoid, which it was actually the band's only top 20 hit, which was number 4 in the UK charts. What else did I see about this? I mean, this album is often on Wikipedia, it says often cited as a key influence for development of heavy metal genre. And the title track actually was written, the words were written in like 5 minutes, and the entire song was done in 2 hours. It was like an afterthought because they felt like they didn't have enough songs on the album, so they just whipped it together.
That's
it was
crazy.
like their most famous songs.
That's crazy.
Mhm.
That's crazy. That really, when you know how to play music, writing music, and doing that, that's incredible talent.
but yeah, that album I can just listen to all the time. It's just good.
Timeless. My turn.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my number 2. Okay, this is Yes, Time in a Word. It's not my favorite Yes album, and it's not just because I didn't pick it just because it's from 1970. I've always liked Yes. There's a lot of keyboards, and like I said, I've played piano since I was 5, so I was really intrigued how a piano could sound so cool because my piano didn't. John Anderson has a voice that I've always loved. It wasn't as developed at that time. You can hear it be a little bit more tinny or sharp. Over the years, he developed more of a sound that he could even, I mean, he's had 3 Ships, an album that was for Christmas, and it's more melodic. But their songs on this album, they're very energized, but there's a lot of ambient tones to certain parts of them where you can kind of fall back and get into the music more instead of feeling a little agitated. I've always liked Chris Squire. I've seen him solo, not 45 times like the Grateful Dude sees people, but a couple times. I've always liked Chris Squire. His singing isn't great, but he's got a kind of a weird voice. But John Anderson and yes, he's the forefront. When you listen to that album now, you can kind of see where they were evolving into more of their poppy stuff that ended up coming in the 80s, like 90125 and 1983. But they still maintained what made them Yes, even in those later albums, I feel. My favorite song on that album is Astral Traveler. It kind of sets the tone for the later albums. You see some of the songs on that album they left behind in what they were doing, and then they had songs like Astral Traveler that moved them into the next phase of what they were going to do later in the 70s. I just think they were great. They were fun. They were, I can still listen to them. I know that it's an acquired taste for some people, but I picked them as my number 2.
They had 2 album covers for that too. It seemed like
Yeah, they
had that
did 2 different
old
album
one
covers.
and yeah,
Yep.
I like. Yeah, I when this goes up, it'll be the second album cover. I like that one better.
Yeah,
Wait
I
a
do
minute.
too.
I wonder why.
Yeah, well, yeah,
um,
remarketing, I guess.
I guess so. Show it off. When you said ambient, when going back to listen to that record, it's cinematic, very cinematic.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it could have been a soundtrack in places.
Yeah, because ambient, you can have some of that stuff in the background and not be overpowered by it.
But and the one thing about their background is almost bombastic that you don't even think of it as ambient because you can really hear it. It's orchestrated the most.
Orchestrated. That's a great word.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. So that was mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Grateful,
John
dude.
Grateful Dude. Okay.
Number 2.
So, my next album is probably one that 90% of the population knows is heard of. Was probably their greatest album, even when they both went into private. This album sold so many, it's ridiculous. I'm talking about Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water.
I almost picked that too.
Yeah, well,
It's a good one.
On everybody's list, just about.
Yep,
I would.
absolutely.
So, yeah. So, I mean, there's
Uh-oh.
I'm having technical difficulties.
Turn your
Well, as long as
music
it
off.
doesn't
We're
put a
getting
pot
shut
on your
down.
head. It's as long as you don't suddenly become a caricature.
That could happen any minute now. So, damn it. I'm having technical difficulties. So
He's getting pop-ups.
I'm getting pop-ups.
What are you watching during our show?
Okay, so this had a lot of great songs on it. I mean, the Boxer, Cecilia,
Oh, Cecilia.
Robinson.
yeah, Bye Bye Love, The Only Living Boy, which I love this song, Only Living Boy in New York. Great, great, great album. This was Simon and Garfunkel at their best. There's no question. There's no album after or before it was good as this. This album nailed it. And I listen to this album at least twice a month. I love this album. There's nothing wrong. Matter of fact, I'll probably go listen to it after the show tonight. So great, great album. Really is. Mark.
Yeah,
Wait, I wanted to say something about Jeff's. Can I say something?
You may.
That those songs were allowed on my parents' car radio, and that's not unlike the ones I chose, but that they're like, you don't hear them for, these songs for years, and then you hear the first measure of music and you can sing every word. So I agree with you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Not at all.
Yeah, this record, when you think about the release pattern of it, I think the last track that actually released on radio was a Spanish track, Spanish written, right?
What?
I was trying to look up the name of it. El Condor Pasa, if I could.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Which, right that point, they've done nothing. They can't do anything wrong. I mean, the whole album is almost like a greatest hits.
Yeah, exactly.
So, tremendous record. I don't know how many copies and stuff it sold, but it was ridiculous.
Millions and millions.
And it's still cataloged today, so it's
That's
still
what I
going.
was going to say still. Mhm.
All right, so I'm going to get back on the reservation with a familiar record. Obviously, I love the blues. But I love my blues a little obtuse. I love my singers to be lead, crazy people, and no one crazier than Jim Morrison. So mine is The Doors, Morrison Hotel. Obviously, there's no better way to start a record than Roadhouse Blues.
Yep.
This is eeriness that you get right off the bat with Waiting for the Sun. It's eeriness, that keyboard and bass line driven. It's fuzzy too. I love fuzz. So Peace Frog takes a jive and funk area stance on things. So underrated. Bringing in Blue Sunday with his vocal, then less interesting maybe a Ship of Fools. Robert Plant's Ship of Fools is much better. But then
yes, it is.
Then you're back with Land Ho and Erie the Spy and Queens of the Highway. You get a smooth little break in this Indian Summer, which is kind of just a standard. But then you're back on Maggie McGill to end the record. The songs are positioned oddly. I don't know if I would have ended with Maggie McGill, but it's quintessential Doors, and just get it on. It's if you put it on, I know what I'm getting, and it's all fantastic. And if he was still alive, goddamn.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Isn't that a shame?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have liked to be able to have a future, like a crystal ball to see what would have happened with?
It would have been nice if I could have seen him live, and I'm assuming someone on this panel has seen him live.
Yeah,
maybe
Kuligowski.
Me?
Who, me?
Who, me? That's why we keep you.
Yeah. Jeff, your number
it's a good one.
one.
It's a good
Number
one.
one.
My number one is the debut album released in the UK, Black Sabbath, self-titled. Generally received negative reviews from contemporary critics. The music at the time was considered very dark, and had classics like anyone who knows Black Sabbath knows the Black Sabbath title song, The Wizard, NIB.
Yep.
It's only got 7 tracks on it, But it's their debut studio album, and it's Wikipedia was mentioning that it's regarded as the first heavy metal album. And the opening track, the Black Sabbath opening track, is referred to as the first doom metal song.
Really?
Just was kind of ahead of its time, but those, again, I'm a big Black Sabbath fan, and
Me too.
those songs, even from the one I had before Paranoid, I know I'll listen to them till I die. They're just
Right.
favorites.
And think about it. That was from 60 years ago, right? Am I right?
Well,
53. 53. And
53.
and there's Ozzy Osbourne still trying to do something. That's crazy to me that all these older metal guys, whether it's the Stones or they're not metal, but it's almost like they're
Yeah,
able to surpass like some kind of longevity test, no matter what they do to themselves.
They eat leather.
I was mentioning
Well,
it
if they
before,
were-
like
Fire.
If they weren't making records, they'd be working at McDonald's. So
And they'd be dead
yeah.
because nobody would have any gumption to keep doing that for 60 years or whatever. That's a good album. I agree.
Yeah, the
Um,
only other Black Sabbath album that had such success as, like, say, Paranoid,
Yeah.
getting like a one, was like what, 5 or 10 years ago when 13 came out, when they reunited for one more album.
Mhm.
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. The Wizard, I honestly, in their catalog, I think The Wizard is the greatest song they ever wrote. That's their best. Some of the stuff seems
Like,
rehashed
some of their
to some
stuff
degree.
too, like Littlefinger, that's like it kind of gets into the whole it gets really bluesy. It's really bluesy metal.
Well,
It's really-
they were a blues band. They were blues controls
Oh, yeah.
everything in that band, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
that's all where
Yep.
it comes from. That's where Doom and Alice in Chains is a blues band. That
Mhm.
when they come right down to it. Yeah, that whole thing about metal and Doom. The Doom side I can see. The metal side is a very arguable moment, and it goes on forever. Like they talk about Budgie and people from the '60s.
but
that
they
would
were
do stuff like that.
they were the first band to bring the flute into rock, and a lot of other bands have done that afterwards.
Wait, when did Jethro
Although-
Tull bring the flute?
You had flute in 2 or 3 songs. Listen,
Well, but this is 1970.
Right.
What are you saying? The flute into what?
I'll
'Cause
send
I'm
you.
a bu-
I'll send you the recording after.
Well, I know the
What?
flute is in there, but I don't know if it's the first time. I'd be interested.
It's the first time they were in a hard rock band. Period.
Okay.
Okay,
I
Mark,
found
don't make
on
that
the-
a challenge.
I found that on the internet.
Oh, well, the internet
On the
says so.
Google. Found him on
I
the
mean,
Google.
Wikipedia just said they were the first metal band. That's wrong.
Listen, Mark, he's seen Black Sabbath 1,835 times, 4 of which
Yeah,
were
Black
at the
Sabbath
community
lives in
fair,
Chef Jeff's
and they had a
house.
flute every single time.
And they're playing behind him right now.
Yep. Let's move on to Deb.
Okay, I'm going. All right, my number one. And it's so funny because my first time I sent my list, I think I put him down near the bottom, but I kept re-listening and I went, no way. Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Emerson, Lake and
Wow.
Palmer. And this is the one that prompted me when we had our pre-conversation before Jeff joined us, Chef, that I would love to have him be able to play some of these songs because just hearing the name of the band and the album and me just naming off some songs, you're going to go, yeah, whatever. But if you play the first little bit of each of them, you go, I know that, I know that, I know that. Lucky Man, Peter Gunn, like
Peter
that is Peter Gunn, Hoedown, Still Turn Me On. So beautiful that it sounds like a lullaby, where their other songs are being more, like you were saying, or like an orchestra, not so hard hitting, kind of lulls you back from their other things. But a lot of their songs on this album are Go Big or Go Home. You gotta really listen. Like if you don't know ELP, and it's your first exposure to them, it might be a little much. There's a lot going on. But Carnival, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. And to me, that's very reminiscent of Sergeant Pepper. It's kind of setting, like I said, the tone for these. Tommy already came out, but it's the same kind of thing where it's telling a story, a real story that once you hear it, you can't forget it. And no, Jeff Young, it will not be on elevator music. It won't be on movies and things like that, but it touched me as something that I'll never forget. But I'm also a musician. So I appreciate the number of layers, instruments, what they had to do to record this and mix it. And it gave me a lot of memories. That I think that album, me playing that in my car while my kids were young, helped shape their musical tastes as well, along with my Johnny Cash and, you know, my Nirvana and my
That's a
Billie
help.
Holiday. It kind of fits into that, what makes you appreciate all kinds of music. So that was my number one.
I've spoken to Mark before on this. EOP, to me, is the most underrated
Yeah.
rock band ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky I grew up. I had that album, and I had brain salad surgery.
Mhm,
Those albums were just kick fucking ass. We
mhm.
would go to parties, and that's what we would hear. People would put EOP, man, was flying off the shelf.
And it
But they-
very listenable.
Oh, it's
It wasn't
listenable.
extreme. It wasn't where you had to be all by yourself and go, okay, I'm going to take 45 minutes here. And
You didn't want to be all by yourself. You wanted to dance.
yeah, it's really good music, I think. So that's why I picked that one, even though I had to rearrange my list 14,000 times in the last 2 days.
It's hard. Definitely hard.
It is.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer is they flip out and you could call them progressive rock, you could call them rock, you could call, you know, and then I think what happens in their catalog sometimes is discombobulation.
Yes,
You know,
agreed.
if you grab that I can't think of the record now. It's almost like it's three separate people playing three separate things. Like this
Yes,
one was Emerson's, this was Lake, this was Palmer's.
I
You know,
agree.
and you weren't expecting that, and that's what you got, and you know it's very different. But when they're together and they're on it together, yeah, there's not, yeah, they're I know they're underrated, but they're certainly not at the scope of the bands that are talked about in that genre.
In that era, for sure.
Well, I'm glad that you brought it to attention. So I'm for my
It's because
final
you all
one.
stole Zeppelin 3 from me. I couldn't bring that one.
Are you forgetting me, Mark?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
he keeps.
yep, sorry. Yeah, I got the orders all wrong today.
Yeah, that,
It's your
'cause
turn.
I can go home, you know. So.
Let's let the
My-
graceful dude go. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. My last album, I had like 15 that I was throwing together that all came out of there. So many good bands, but this one I think deserved it. It was their last actual album together, which made people cry.
Oh, Jeff wanted to
Right.
pick it.
No, I know what it is.
I am talking about the Beatles' "Let It Be."
Oh, I almost picked
I
that too.
almost picked it for the same reason.
Yeah.
Me too.
And
Me too.
actually, technically, it wasn't their last, because what happened, they recorded that, got into a fight, and then recorded Abbey Road.
Yes, that's
and-
true.
And Abbey Road
Yep.
was supposed to be their last album, but were having so many problems with the mixing of Let It Be. They released Abbey Road, and then 6 months later they released Let It Be. So technically, it's their 12th album and the last actual album of the Beatles. It is the second to last album ever recorded by the Beatles at Abbey Road. And Abbey Road was the last one recorded there. This, you know, I think the main reason I made this number one, besides it's popularity. Besides, it basically marked the absence of the Beatles, at least for a while before they went off in their many ways. But it was a pretty much a really, really intense album. I won't even mention the songs because it's one of those that everyone I mentioned you would know. It's just one of those kind of things. John Lennon hated this album, absolutely abhorred it. He didn't want the album, and he didn't want the song "Let It Be" to even be put on. But
Well, he released his own album that year anyway.
Yeah, he
And they
did.
all,
but
Yeah, George Harrison had one. Wasn't George Harrison on the list?
George
Right? He
Harrison's
had one.
record sold better.
Yeah, which is amazing.
yeah, but so it was a good album. I think what pushed it to #1 is a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I watched the movie Let It Be, which was a 5-part series on making this album, and I, with all the effort and all the bullshit that went into making this, it deserves, in my book, a #1 spot.
Well, isn't the name of the album pretty fitting for what was happening with them? Let's just let it be.
Well, you got that right, Don.
I
Okay,
know.
Marky.
Yet they didn't let that be the last song.
No, they didn't.
and
I
I
found
especially
the
like
order-
the Sesame Street version when they sang about the letter B. And that is not a
Oh.
joke. That really happened. They do. get
It
that.
did. I remember.
So
It's true.
I that album is so far down my list. I don't like it. I don't know
Doesn't that
why
get
I don't
back
like
on
it.
there?
Pardon? Yeah,
Doesn't it
that's
have
the
to get
last
back on
song.
there?
That's the last song. The sequencing of the songs are odd, very odd. Like
But they
I don't
have they have some songs on there on that album, like Across the Universe and stuff. They're just phenomenal.
now that's the one track I love on there, right? That one I love, and there's
Also,
a
Mark,
couple. Then
you kind of look at things, you look at an album the way for your show that you should. You're looking at the whole album. We're like me, I just remember songs. I can't even tell you the name of the song. I know who the artist is. I can't tell you what album it's on. I just know I like it. And then if I went and looked at what the song list was on there, I'd go, that's a great album because I remember track 1, 4, 7, blah, 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 blah. It's different than your knowledge. And
yeah, it's
that's why
like
you're the
Across
host.
Universe, Let It Be, and the last track. That's it for me. That I remember, right? And then I went back and listened to it, obviously during this time frame, and I like, geez, why do I like Revolver more? Why do I like? And then that just said,
Right.
you know what? People already know. So that's kind of where I went. But yeah, it's a Beatles record. There are no bad Beatles records. There aren't.
Exactly. We'll just
You can
agree
say,
on that.
I mean, my favorite is the White Album, right? I think it's one of the greatest produced records of all time. But
Oh, yeah.
and the reason for that is the ending of it. It's
Yes,
out of its mind, and
Yes.
I don't even know how they made it. Anyway,
I agree.
But there is a bad Beatle album. I never
What?
could stand Hard Day's Night. Never could.
okay.
Oh, yeah, I don't
then.
like that
It's like a
hit.
movie,
That's
right?
Yeah,
movie.
that's real. Yeah, that's not great, but it
Maybe.
still is nostalgic for me. So I still like the songs,
Yeah.
but
Still trying to figure out what a Hard Day's Night means.
Hey, I can tell you later. Okay.
Okay,
okay,
good.
it's not
whisper
for
in my ear.
recording issues. Yeah.
So
Here we go. #1 of #1.
so if I could explain it to you,
Okay.
if I could find the right comparisons, if I could make you understand how excellent this is, if I could even show you where it came in the 1970s, if somebody would have been paying attention to the band If
Well, get out.
and their first album, If.
They had more than
Ooh.
one?
Oh, yes. Hi. Okay. So they're a band
Okay.
from 1970 to 75, we'll say. Okay. They did actually come back in 2016 and they did release If 5. Good luck finding it. Can't get it. This is a progressive rock jazz group. This is 1970. Okay. I know. There's another band out there that's the king of this. Anybody want to mention who they might be?
Well,
Rock
you didn't tell
jazz?
us. Oh, rock jazz.
They represent, their name is a city.
A city?
Chicago?
Very good. Here we go.
Oh,
So here's
you've
Chicago.
seen them 45 times. Okay,
Okay.
got
And
it.
I
Yeah.
know the wheelhouse they're in, but I just can't believe this record. I can't. It's so freaking well produced. It's got some places in this that are just so tight. This is pushing rock jazz fusion to its limits in my estimation, in my ear, right? Maybe it's the best 70s rock jazz band that existed that went nowhere, didn't get any notoriety. I want to say that at some point somewhere they had a list of the bands that they were opening for.
Yeah, that'd be
Oh yeah,
interesting.
yes. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't. So Rush, Kiss,
What?
the Eagles, Bo Diddley, Straubs, REO Speedwagon, Electric Light Orchestra, Leonard Skinner, Frank Zappa, Uriah Heep, Grand Funk Railroad, Rod Stewart, Black Sabbath,
Okay,
and
that's crazy.
Atomic Rooster, and Traffic, and Mott the Hoople. The Hoople.
Matt the
Damn, I didn't say that wrong.
Hoople. Matt the
At the
Hoople.
Hoople. I don't know.
Matt
I
the
don't play
Hoople.
the hula hoop. What the fuck? Anyway.
That's crazy.
If you're doing nothing, if you want something, if I'm telling you, pick up the record, put it on, put it in your headset, and I want comments, I want likes. I don't know. You tell me if I'm fucking out of my mind, but this is a great record. And well, okay. So anyway, I digress somewhat, but look it up. If you don't know, this is an album from 1970 that went sort of unnoticed maybe, but I don't think it went unnoticed in the rock community because I just listed a shitload of bands that didn't mind these people opening for them. So and there's obviously these are one of those, anytime you get rock jazz fusion, the past members list is obscene.
Yeah.
So I won't mention anybody because there's just tons of people, but Dave Quincy, who put this together with Dick Morrissey, they knew what they were doing, the songs they write and how they put things together. There are vocals, just like in Chicago, in some cases there aren't. So
can I ask you something? Do you know, or in your opinion, why they didn't become more mainstream if they've been opening for all these people? Was there something that happened that,
as I stated off air before we joined this thing, this is one of those that's your band name?
Got it.
Maybe it should have been holy shit. This or
instead
something.
of if.
I don't know. Just something should have. I don't know. I really don't. I didn't read that much into it. It's just this was a long time ago. I had this record and listened to it. I don't even know how I got it.
They didn't have a good manager.
They're if they're
Publicist or
bands,
something.
they had some sort of. They were from England. Who wasn't right from England?
I saw them in '73 in San Diego.
Yeah. So am I out of my mind?
Huh?
Am I out of my mind? Are they not
They're
good?
great. They're great.
I'm gonna call
I didn't know
bullshit.
were gonna
You did
pull
not.
that one because that's weird. But I want to mention a couple honorable mentions
Sure.
of ones that didn't get anything tonight, but I think they should have. But there's only 4 of us, so
Right.
Sweet Baby James by James Taylor. Fabulous. Fabulous album.
I know. I love that too.
Yep. Abraxas, Santana. A really classic album.
And then my list too.
Where is it? I had it. All Things Must Pass, George Harrison. And one that almost made the list, it was number 6 and it kept bouncing. Layla and Other Sordid Love Songs by Derek and Dominic.
Yeah. It's pretty much a live record though, isn't it?
No, that was
No.
not listening.
Oh no, I'm thinking of Tedeschi Trucks did it live.
Yeah.
Jeff, do you have an honorable mention at all? Something
the Brady Bunch Christmas. No, I did not pick that one. But I did. I was kidding about the Elvis one did come out that same year. That was something that is the all-time leader in Christmas albums.
Christmas album.
It was?
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
have an
Santa Claus is
honorable
coming to
mention.
town.
Because I don't think it's anywhere near as good as the Jackson 5, honestly.
No, no.
That is
What
so
do you want to
funny.
hear? I'd rather hear.
No, I think as far as, I don't know, we'll mention, if I was gonna pick one, it'd probably be one of the ones that you guys picked,
That's me too. Mhm.
probably Mountain,
Okay, great. Deb?
No, I didn't know I had to pick one. However,
Okay.
I did agree with a lot of the ones that you guys picked. They were just more mainstream that I thought I would duplicate, but mine obviously would be Zeppelin 3. Like
Yeah.
it just anything
I-
Zeppelin I love. I
Period.
mean Robert Plant. I gotta go because Robert Plant's knocking on my door. He's been waiting to marry me, and now I'm finally single. So
He'll be
no,
over
that would
any
be
day.
mine.
So you're
One
saying
more-
there's a chance.
So you're
One
saying there's
more-
a chance. What?
One more band I want to mention that is, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of them. I've seen them live. I have 2 of their albums
How many times did
uh,
you see him live?
twice.
Okay, that's
Look, the band name is the Velvet Underground.
of
Heard 'em.
course. We've
Yep.
heard of them.
Yep.
Who's the lead singer? Come on, I
can't
don't know.
Velvet Jones.
No, it's Velvet Ho. It's a Velvet Ho.
I don't even know,
Hello.
but I know Velvet Underground, but I don't know their songs. But are they a one-hit wonder?
No.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
I just don't know song names that go with bands. So
Yeah, that would be one that's slightly out of my wheelhouse. I know who they are, but I can't think of who the lead singer is. And-
Well, yeah, actually on Loaded, only on Loaded, their lead singer was Lou Reed.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
yes,
explains-
okay,
That
that
explains
makes
it.
sense. Yep, that
Yeah.
definitely got him.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Where I would know
have,
Lou Reed, but I would never know what band he was from. So thank
Right.
you.
so I have 3 honorable mentions. I could have
Okay.
had more, obviously.
Yeah.
I will say that just beyond those 3 that I'm going to start with, that please look at the Kinks, Ry Cooder, Joe Cocker,
Yeah.
Booker T, the MGs. These are all standards from that time, right? Derek and the Dominoes, like Jeff said. So my first one is a person who tried to rebound. One of the most classic voices in the history of music. And he got together with, I believe, Frankie Valli for this piece. And it is an album, a concept album about a man from Watertown, New York.
What?
What?
I know.
The
I
most
know
snow in the world. The most
You
snow
know
in
who
the
I'm
world.
talking about? Old Blue Eyes, Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra.
It is a remarkable work for 1970. His vocal, the way it's done. There's a song called Elizabeth. It might be the best song he ever sang that doesn't get much play. The second part of the album is just a vocal crescendo after vocal crescendo, passionate delivery and connection. The story is compelling, and so is the accompaniment and the timing of it with Valli and his producer. I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but a remarkable record. Obviously, Sinatra's more well known for earlier era, but this was something that was in I knew about, and I didn't know it was a concept record, and I didn't know. I just thought Watertown. Anyone's a Watertown. No, Watertown, New York. So my second honorable mention is a
That's good.
little bit more well known, maybe, and that's Screaming Lord Sutch.
No, it's not.
Screaming
No.
Lord Sutch was with Lord Sutch and the Heavy Friends. Okay, so love the music and the guests because you do know, and I'm going to tell you one.
Who is
you
it?
know.
Who is it?
Guest stars Jimmy Page, John Bonham, Jeff Beck,
Get out.
Henry of Steppenwolf, and of course, who wouldn't want the keyboardist from Jimi Hendrix, which I can't remember the guy's name. I'm telling you that this guy, okay, who was also doing this at the same time he was running for Parliament under the party of Official Monster Raving Loony Party. Pick up this album.
I can't.
It's batshit crazy rock and roll, the way it should be, unhinged. Think Spinal Tap with the clothes off. It's on like Donkey Kong. All right. It's a
Really?
great record. It's fun to listen to, and it makes no apologies. And those guys on it, Bonham wrote some of the songs. Page is on it. They all play. It's a ripper. It's a rip, guaranteed. Okay.
That's
One more.
awesome. That's
One more.
awesome. No, you
And-
can't top that one.
Well, I can and I can't. This album would have been in my top 5. The problem is it has 2 very badly produced tracks, and I won't forgive you for it. The Rolling Stone magazine, no, maybe not Rolling Stone. Somebody, I can't think of who it was, said this is the greatest rock and roll album of all time, hands down. It's deeper than the Stones ever went and more alive than the Beatles ever were. And that's the Stooges Funhouse.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
There
I
are
almost
some
picked that
really
one.
excellent hard rock tracks. One of the greatest. Down on the Street has been done by other bands like Rage Against the Machine. It's
Mhm,
just a magnificent chaos that's so cool.
mhm.
But there's 2 tracks that are just not well recorded, and they go on. One goes on a little too long.
Some of their
Oh,
songs
it-
make me think of like a early version of like an AC/DC type band.
Yeah, but bad. Yeah.
I think it's their best record, and that wasn't their first one. Set everybody on fire, but I just like that record. But I'm always like, oh, there it comes. Nope. Couldn't somebody have heard that and gone, wait a second? It sounds like
Was
we did it 6 weeks ago.
The
It was,
Iggy
it was
Pop. Go ahead.
they were the first band I ever saw at Whiskey A Go Go.
Oh, that's
You went to
right.
the Whiskey A Go Go. I hate you.
Oh my God, he probably
I've
can't.
been to
there.
Whiskey A Go Go as
Did-
many times as you are aged. That was
Wow.
my sad. That was my. I would
That
go no matter
is-
who was playing.
I'm
Aged
so
and
jealous.
confused.
Aged and confused. Now we got 2 names for him.
Oh my God, he's just more nicknames for you than
A
anyone
shirt
I know.
here and a name here and a name here. Really, that is so. Yeah, Iggy Pop. He's a Stooges guy, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay. I'm not good
Okay.
with names, but I'm starting as I get older. I'm trying to use that as my anti-dementia weapon, is to learn some of these things. So that's cool.
I tried that, but I still got dementia.
Crowley. I
Dale,
love that. I love it.
On that note, we've gone over our time.
as usual.
I want to thank all my panelists for their
Who editing is
5
for.
tracks and 5 tracks and their honorable mentions. We're on the web at www.beyondyourradio.com. You know the rest. We'll be back with
Like
the
and
panelist show.
subscribe.
Yes. On the panelist side, we'll be doing this again. Our next battle is unfortunately 10 years next. So it'll be 1980.
Oh, that's better for me.
Is it better? Is it better?
It-
I don't know.
it is
We'll
for me.
see.
Too much
I
disco.
don't know. I don't know.
Happy listening, everyone.